Welcome to the Payroll Profits Podcast, the world's top podcast for payroll entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Tyler Wynn. Whether you're starting out in the business or looking to take your practice to the next level, join me and other fellow entrepreneurs as we explore strategies for success, share insights, and uncover the secrets to scaling your seven-figure payroll business. Let's dive in. Hey, this is Tyler Wynn with the Payroll Profits Podcast. Today, we're going to be visiting with Tim Petrey of HG Growth Partners and White Glove Payroll. He is the owner of a CPA firm and a payroll company, which is pretty cool. We're going to be talking about how he utilizes the software Karbon in his firm to scale the number of clients that he's able to serve and to create more efficient communication within his team. So let's dive into it. Hey, Tim, it's great to have you on. Good to see you, man. How you been?
Great, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have a conversation with you. I have a feeling this is going to be one of those interviews that we're going to have to cut short. We could probably talk for hours and hours about the payroll business and all the ins and outs of what we're up to.
Just a couple of payroll bros, man.
Just a couple of payroll bros. Actually, maybe I should rename the podcast to that, Payroll Bros. Well, then I'd be excluding some demographic, but
yeah, maybe.
We'll title this one Payroll Bros.
There you go.
Yeah, so I'd love to just kind of start off the conversation here. Obviously, I want to know more about your story. I know we've talked more, but I don't know if I know your origin story. Like, how did you get into the payroll business? What brought you here? Yeah,
so I mean, it's an interesting story about how I got into the public accounting space. Period. That evolved into payroll. So I graduated college in 2008. Was not the greatest time in our country for being a finance professional, right? I'm born and raised here in Youngstown, Ohio, which was, a bit of a dying city for a couple of decades. We didn't have a tremendous amount of opportunities in the early 2000s here. Really trying to get ourselves reinvented at that point in time. I had expected to leave town and go take a job in DC. And I had a few months in between when that job started and trying to figure out what I wanted to do for those couple of months. So I had thought about going back to my high school, college job, which was washing semi-trucks. And at the Blue Beacon Truck Wash, shout out to all of my Blue Beacon Truck Wash buddies out there. And I had an opportunity to work with an accounting firm, a really small accounting firm, about 3 people. They just basically needed somebody to answer the phones, just be there, answer the phones, help out with whatever they needed help with. And my former partner, my original boss there, Harold Davis, and I just hit it off. So after 6 months, he and I kind of looked at each other, and I said, you know what, I don't want to leave. And he looked at me and says, well, I don't really want to sell the business to somebody else. I'm kind of having fun. We're having too much fun together. So he and I decided to just go all in at that point in time on each other. He had a small firm. I was willing to work my tail off and listen and learn from him. He took me under his wing, and that was kind of the beginning of our start in public accounting. And so that was 2009. Fast forward a few years later, I started to buy into our practice in 2012, and I took over as the operations partner in 2014. At that point in time, I was about 26 years old, taking over an accounting firm, and we did a lot of payroll. We had a good chunk of our business was payroll for some restaurant clients, manufacturing clients, and they were horribly inefficient at it. They were getting faxed sheets and then rekeying them into Excel and then putting them into some program, and it was just a disaster of a process. So in 2017, made the decision to say, okay, we're going to do one of two things. We're going to walk away from the payroll business. We're going to sell it off to somebody, or we're going to go all in on the payroll business and really make a substantial investment of time and energy. Yeah. And I went to my largest client and I said to them, I said, guys, I'm doing one of these two things. And they looked at me and they said, well, you're doing one of those things, and that is doing payroll, because we want you to do our payroll. And they were a 6-figure account for us. They were our largest account by a mile. They were 25% of our business at the time. Yeah. And so, you listen to your customers, especially in that scenario when you don't have much of a choice. So we went all in and started the payroll business, White Glove Payroll, in 2017. Spent about 2 years of really just building out architecture for the thing and making sure we had the right people and the right softwares and systems, and really started to aggressively try to grow in 2019.
So it was in 2017 that you actually spun it off into a separate entity.
Yes.
Before then, it was all under the hood of the CPA firm.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Did you feel like that was necessary, like creating a new business to show we were committed to this payroll thing? Why didn't you just kind of internally commit and say, we're just going to give it the resources it needs within the firm?
For a couple of reasons. I mean, number one, I felt like if we were going to do it, we needed to do it right. We needed to go all in on something because, to me, the problem that you have with an accounting firm that's doing all these other things is that it really waters down the brand. It waters down the offering. Is that, okay, if you're an accounting firm and you're offering, tax and advisory and A&A services and valuations and payroll and this, that, and the other, it's really hard to explain to people that you do any and all of those things really, really well. So we wanted to dedicate our efforts and energy and that group of people to only do payroll. So when we were hiring people, we wanted them to be directly focused on payroll and nothing else. We were of the mindset that service was the way for us to win business there, and the big box competitors just have abandoned that concept, and they don't really care about providing customer service. They want to give you access to some software. And so, to answer your original question, I felt that it was critical for us to do it right, to spin it off on its own and not be part of that umbrella of the accounting firm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think I'm with you. I think that's the way to go. I think it demonstrates putting your money where your mouth is, and it's demonstrating that, hey, if you don't do that, it can tend to be more business as usual. Like, oh yeah, it's kind of lip service. Like, we're going to give more resources and we're going to make this a priority, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But if you spin it up and you're like, this business has to stand on its own, it's going to have its own P&L. Like, it's got to deliver service.
Yep.
And it's, I think
and you got to be able to know, right? I mean, you want to be able to know, are you achieving the right margins on that business? Mm-hmm. You don't want it to just be buried into the rest of your financials so that you can't clearly understand what it looks like. And then when it comes time to being able to motivate the future leaders of that company, you want to give them ownership of that. You may not want to give them ownership of the CPA firm. And there's so much complexity around ownership in a CPA firm that when I wanted to find that great leader of that organization for White Glove Payroll, I wanted to make sure that I could attract and retain them with ownership and equity.
Hey, I have developed a free community on Facebook for users of the payroll relief software. If you use this software and you want to join a community of fellow users where you can get your questions answered and share knowledge with fellow software users, just go to Facebook and search for Payroll Relief User Group and join the community today. I kind of want to dig into this because I feel like some of our listeners might be in that position where they're teetering. It's like, do I commit to this or do I walk away? Mm-hmm. And some of those people may be within an accounting firm or leaders within a firm. When you did that, just logistically, you made that move. Did you move certain staff over to say you're just on the payroll side, or did people split their time, or did you go hire new people onto the payroll side? How did that work from a staffing perspective?
Yes to all of those things. So we had a couple people that were like splitting their time between the two, and we said, listen, you're not going to do any CPA firm work anymore. We're going to get you moved over to be exclusive in the payroll. After long conversations with them to make sure that that was what they wanted to do in their career. And then we really kind of set out and said, who do we want to be and how do we want to get there? And what people do we need on the bus to make sure that we're accomplishing in that? And we went out and did some hiring. The first year, 2 years, this was not immediately profitable. This is not something that in your first 2 years you're expecting to make a bunch of money. This was a long-term investment. So, we hired the right people, and that's the commitment. That's the leap, right? Is that you're dedicating dollars and time and energy to doing this with the expectation that this is going to pay off over a number of years and not, I'm going to make money immediately. So that's the word of caution I'd give to anybody thinking about doing this, is that, do it for the long haul. Don't think that this is going to be something that's immediately profitable. And if it is, quite frankly, you're probably doing it wrong. because you're
Explain
just
that.
not dedicating enough time to building processes and systems to scale it.
Yeah.
Because if you're immediately making profit in that business, then maybe you're in the right market, you've got a beautiful niche, this, that, and the other. But if you're not starting off from day one investing into documenting your systems and processes so that you can share work with your employees when they decide to go on vacation, or they're out on maternity leave, or they need to spend time with their family, or this, that, or the other, then once you get to a certain critical mass, the whole thing's going to fall apart, and it's going to be a lot harder to fix then than it is when the numbers are small.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people starting out don't see that. They see people like you and me that have 1,000+ clients, and it's like, oh, I'm sure you just had it figured out from the start. No, like for you guys, you had to invest and put a lot of cash into it to make it into something that was profitable over time. For me, I was like bootstrapping, and I was working other jobs while I started my company. So I wasn't like, I'm just going to do payroll and it's immediately profitable and I'm paying the bills.
Right.
No, I moved home and lived with my parents for 6 months. I waited tables at the cheesecake.
Sometimes you got to sell pieces of cheesecake, Tyler, to get the payroll business going, man.
Cheesecake is the entry drug to payroll. Just so everybody knows.
Cheesecake is the entry drug to a lot of things, but that's another podcast, I think.
Right. So yeah, it's but I love that you made the leap, you made the commitment, and you're like, we're going to go all in on this. Because honestly, you talk to a lot of accountants too, and the suffering out there. It's like the dabbling in it and the, hey, we're just going to do it because our clients ask us to, and it's just an add-on or whatever.
Yep.
That's where
or even worse,
lies.
You trust somebody else to do it and they don't do it well. I mean, that's where a lot of our misery was that I wasn't as worried about maybe the lack of profitability or the lack of the scaling or lack of the processes. Where I had a really hard time was I would refer my payroll business to the big box providers, and they would make me look bad because the quality of the offering was not in the same ballpark of the quality of the offering of our accounting firm. We're a high touch, we're a high level of service at our accounting firm. And you're sending it off to somebody that ends up in a phone bank somewhere with a different person every time, and they don't really care about your business. They care to sell you, but they don't care to retain you.
Right.
That was where our misery was in particular.
Yeah. So that kind of takes me to my next question. White Glove Payroll. What was the original name of the company back in 2017?
Yeah. So, I mean, from the beginning, we wanted people to understand that this is a luxury product. So we wanted people to look at this and say, okay, I have a choice. I can go and I can buy the used, the Toyota, right? I can go buy a good, solid, dependable vehicle, which is your big box provider, and it's going to get me by, right? But, I'm still going to have to go get my oil changed, and I'm going to have to deal with getting my tires changed, and I'm going to have to deal with all this other stuff. And when it comes to us, we wanted to feel like, you were buying a luxury vehicle. You were buying a Mercedes. You're buying a Maserati. It's not a conversation of, hey, you got to figure out your oil changes on your own. I'm going to bring a car to you. I'm going to, not interrupt your day-to-day stuff, and I'm going to make sure that this is completely and absolutely off of your plate. I don't want you worrying about your unemployment filings, your 941 deposits, your, HR related issues. I want you to be completely hands off. So we will focus and do the best thing that we do, and you can focus and do the best thing that you do. If I can give you more hours back in the day because of this luxury offering, how much money can you make in your business? So, that was the whole point of that from the beginning was, for example, our payroll processors are payroll concierges.
I love that.
Everything is a high level experience with our folks. Our concierges get to know their clients, they know their families, they know their staff, they're intimately involved in that business and get really integrated and become something that people find great long-term value in their business. And that's a real business to business relationship right there. Otherwise, you're just a commodity, and it's only a matter of time before you're replaced by this software offering or this pricing discount that this big box store provider is doing. Right. So you got to set your moats up. You got to make sure that people don't want to leave because they just don't, they wouldn't want to do business without you.
Yeah. I love that payroll concierge. It just communicates exactly what I think you want it to. When I think of that, I think, wow, someone's going to hold my hand, give me a level of service I can't find anywhere else. I love that. I had thought about rebranding my company to Payroll Heroes, but all the domains are all taken. So, and I don't want to pay $50,000 for a domain. So maybe someday. But yeah, that's cool. So do you have one level of service for your clients, or do you have different tiers that people can buy into? I don't know if we ever talked about that. I was just curious.
Yeah, so I mean, we do a relatively standard pricing offering with our clients. Where things start to get a little bit more customizable is when they start to integrate into their accounting platform itself. So, that level of integration is where the complexity and the pricing starts to dial up. So, for example, if we're making their retirement plan contributions for them into their system, if we're posting their payroll journal entries into their QuickBooks Online for them, those types of things where we add into that basic bronze package, your silver package, and your gold package. Your gold packages, we've got everything taken care of, from making sure that your employees get paid to making sure that your QuickBooks is updated to sure that your benefit plan administration functions are taken care of, your workers' comp, literally everything that you can think of is hands off. So we try in any and all circumstances to give people 2 to 3 choices, a good, better, best, and then make them aware when you're ready to scale up into that best, this is what it looks like, and this is hopefully the time that we're taking off of your plate so that you can reinvest it somewhere else more impactful.
Yeah. When I think of that white glove concierge type business model, I think that your first point of contact in, like when you walk into the lobby of the Ritz-Carlton or whatever, there's like a factor there that you try to wow somebody from the start. Do you guys do something like that with your onboarding experience? Anything special or unique that makes people feel, once they've signed that service agreement, okay, I made the right decision to join this particular company?
Yeah, so we get the question a lot. We just had a potential onboarding conversation with a client the other day, and they said, well, what am I going to need to do? They had been through this. They had switched from, this big box provider to that big box provider, and they're used to that pain of that transition. And we said, we don't need you to do anything. We need you to give us a login. You give us a login, you give us X, Y, and Z access, and we're running. So we want people to experience that, luxury feeling of, I don't have to worry about this from the first interaction that they have with our business. So the onboarding process is critical for us because, it takes a lot to earn that trust to get somebody to make that commitment to come and transition your payroll company, right? The worst thing that you can do is start off with the experience of, we're not who we say we are, right? So we want to make sure that that luxury experience is communicated from day one.
Yeah. That fear of the unknown with a transition from one payroll company to another, I feel like is a huge barrier that I've seen. And I'm even talking with an accounting firm right now that they're with a partner that they're not happy with, and their clients aren't happy with, and they know they'd be better off working with me. But there's this hesitation because they said, hey, we surveyed our clients and, they're not really feeling up for a change right now. Which, first of all, I was like, these are your clients, your firm. You need to guide them into what you know is best for them. That's at least my perspective. So I feel like they're taking the wrong tact by just taking a client survey because, of course, no client is going to want to add something onto their plate that they're going to feel like they have to do. So I just emailed them back and I was like, hey, I know it's pretty sad how much BS they'll put up with before they actually will make a change. But I was like, just so you know, the way we operate is the client's barely even going to know anything's happening. Like they literally sign a little bit of paperwork, set up their login into our system, and we do 100% of the data migration. We're going to go into the old platform and pull everything over. It requires nothing from you, the CPA firm. It requires nothing from the client. It's just going to be done. But I realized I'm not communicating that. I'm communicating when I come up against the hurdle, but people need to know that up front. So that's something I'm doing a website revamp right now, and hopefully this is helpful to the listeners too, to think like, what are the pain points that I can address before the issue comes up? Like I solve it in their mind before it becomes the issue that stops them from moving forward. And my website needs to communicate. If you transition us, this is what to expect, this is what you have to do. And just show them like it's basically nothing. So if you're suffering, just make the change and stop putting up with it, because it's crazy what people will put up with before they'll make a change.
The thing that I would be really worried about in that scenario, in my communication to people, is by the time someone is upset and by the time that they're ready to make a change, you've already lost a pretty substantial amount of trust with that client, right? Because you referred them to that business, right? My conversation with those people is, hey, I referred you to this XYZ big box provider of payroll, and I'm not happy with what they're doing, right? And the client might say, hey, it's good enough for us. And my answer to them is, it's not good enough for me, and it shouldn't be good enough for you. So I'm going to proactively make this change because I'm not happy with what they're providing to you. I'm not happy with the partnership that they have for me. And I know that long term, the wheels are going to fall off of this thing because I can see that you are eventually going to be unhappy. But if you wait until the clients are already saying, hey, the payroll provider that you sent us to sucks, it's too late.
Yeah, right. Already got some trust to rebuild, right?
Yeah, which is not fun.
Let me ask you this, because I want to talk a little bit about growth. So you had the clients that were in the original firm that obviously you moved over to White Glove and retained them. How have you grown the payroll side of the business since then? And have you found that you are getting clients like through the CPA firm channel that you're then able to move over to White Glove? And then have you found clients that have come to you just for payroll that you've also been able to move over to the firm? And so to me, it's like such an interesting strategy, because then you're like pulling in leads from two angles, and they're like sister companies. You can feed business back and forth. Is that how that's actually worked for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So on a couple of different fronts, we grew in a variety of different ways. We had, pretty good organic, double-digit percentage annual increases every year in big chunks. We had some acquisitions where the accounting firm was going to acquire another accounting firm, and that accounting firm did payroll as well. So we broke it up into two separate acquisitions. The payroll company acquired the payroll book of business. The accounting firm acquired the accounting firm book of business. That was certainly impactful for us in terms of our growth. But from day one, we've never had a business development person. We've never had a salesperson. And I know that we've talked about that a little bit, and there's some need to eventually have those mechanisms in place. But our payroll concierges have such a unique relationship with their clients that their clients are out telling their friends and other business owners, hey, you wouldn't believe what these people are doing and how great of a service that they're providing. Yeah. So that was always the target for us, is to service them so well that was the reaction that they were having. So that fueled a ton of our growth. We did very little marketing. We had a good social presence on our social media feeds and our website and stuff like that. Nothing over the top. And then we invested in our community. We showed up to a lot of the local events and fundraisers, and we sponsored the golf outings or the spaghetti dinners and the stuff that, we could send our people to, they could volunteer at, they could show that community engagement. And that was a huge fuel for our growth. And I mean, one of the reasons that we've been able to grow is that our culture is spectacular. People love what they do. They love the flexibility and autonomy of our systems and processes for them to work. So, you put all those things together, and it's a good recipe for healthy, controlled, enjoyable growth.
Yeah, it's amazing what actually just being a decent company can do for you these days.
Shocker.
Do what you say you're going to do, answer your email in a timely manner, pick up the phone. It's a pretty low bar.
It's sad, but it is.
It is sad, yeah. Are you getting a lot of business mainly locally there in Youngstown, or are you expanding? Do you have out-of-state clients? What does that makeup look like?
So we have clients all over the United States. We're in 40 states currently.
Awesome.
The woman that runs the payroll business, my partner, Marcy Angelo, she's our director of operations, owner in the business.
She's awesome,
she travels.
by the way.
She is spectacular.
I really enjoyed hanging out with her at the Iris conference.
She's great people.
And she's
everywhere. I mean, Her significant other works on the NASCAR circuit, so they're all over the place for that kind of work, and they like to travel a ton, which is the whole model of the backside of our business, is that we employ stay-at-home parents, and we employ people that want that flexibility and autonomy to live their lives. So as a result, Marcy does the things that we do here in our local community all over the place, right? She's showing up to those events. She's volunteering her time. She's active in all those various communities that she's a part of. And as a result, she's accumulated clients from all over the country. Again, just by, she's a good person. And people know that she's going to do what she says she's going to do. So there's an inherent level of trust that happens pretty quickly. And so, that's been the driving force behind our growth across the country. It's just been having a couple of really amazing people that are out there and interacting with their customers.
I guess I need to hire somebody that's on like a racing circuit then to handle my sales. Get them going nationwide, talking to people.
You never know.
Yeah. She's awesome, though. You've got a great partner there. Tell me about, tell me one of the challenges you had, like when you first spun up the payroll company, just thinking of, things that people can avoid, pitfalls, and maybe something you fell into or something you had to overcome. Can you think of a challenge early on in the business and how you overcame that?
Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe you should at least get a plug for this portion of this, maybe a referral check back from our friends at Iris or something of that magnitude. Right. But honestly, we did we did a lot of homework in the beginning about softwares, because the way that we were doing payroll, and I would guess that the way that most accounting firms are doing payroll is extremely inefficient and impossible to scale, right? There's a lot of firms that were using, QuickBooks to do payroll, and or were like white labeling with a larger provider. And there's not enough left over to make any money if you're paying a really lucrative high fee to someone else to white label it, or if you're using QuickBooks to do payroll, there's just too much that can go wrong. The fees associated with that have gotten higher and higher and higher. Right. So again, there's not much left over.
Right.
Step one for us was making the decision to utilize Accountants World, payroll relief platform. We test drove quite a few different softwares and systems at the time. We kind of went through the process of trying to determine what we would need to be doing to impound the money on our own, manage the float, deal with all of the audit requirements and things of that magnitude. And at the time, it proved to be something that we didn't do because the interest rates were so low. And there wasn't enough money to make on the float of those payroll dollars to justify the large investment into the systems and processes that you would need to ensure that is done correctly. So, my advice to people that's, looking at starting off and or scaling a payroll business is spend a lot of time finding the right software provider that's going to allow for you to scale, and then, build your processes alongside that.
Yeah, that's been key. I 100% agree. I've got my beefs with Accountants World over the years. There's no perfect payroll software out there. I know whoever I'm with, I'm going to have some grievances. That's just the nature of the business. But I'm really glad we chose that platform, and I'm not getting paid to say this. I just am genuinely grateful that that's what we chose, because I feel like it has been the right platform to serve the small business clientele that we typically work with, 1 to 49 employees. They don't need all the bells and whistles and all the expenses that come along with that most of the time. They just want to get their payroll done and get it done right, and have a nice portal they can log into, pretty self-explanatory and, easy to use. So it's been good for that, and the price has been right. There's enough margin there to make it a very profitable business to run a payroll firm on. I 100% agree, but I will say, with the shortcomings of any software, what I find people doing a lot of times is just gripe about it. They just go on the forums and moan about, oh, why did this happen? Why did that happen? And a lot of the stuff is legitimate. Like, there's some things that shouldn't happen, or maybe it should be programmed a different way. But what we've done is we've used internal processes to band-aid all those things. So anytime we come across something in the software that we're like, I don't like that, or hey, there's a crack that something could fall through. Like we could forget to run this payroll or file this tax form or make this deposit because the system isn't flaring up some kind of signal that it needs to get done. We just go into our project management software and we create a recurring task to go check that that always happens. So we've got this whole like system that we've built over time. I know you talked about documentation and creating processes. Since day one, we've been doing that. Like when it was literally just me bootstrapping the thing, I was creating checklists of what I did, even though I had no one to give the checklist to, and I knew the checklist in my head.
Yep.
I made it because I'm like, someday I'm going to give this to somebody, and also I'm human and I don't want to forget. So we always have just created those workarounds to say, hey, if the system doesn't have something built in, if it doesn't have the guardrail there, we're going to make the guardrail ourselves, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable to make sure that thing gets done. Because our clients don't give a crap about how it gets done. They don't care what the software does and doesn't do, or what we do and don't do manually or automatically or anything. As long as it feels automatic to them, that's all they care about.
Get their people paid, man.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Just pay them.
But I know you use, I want to talk to you about Karbon. It's a good segue into that. We use Asana for our internal task management and project management. But talk to me about Karbon, because I think that's what you guys use internally, right?
Yep. So we went for a while without anything, like most firms. I mean, I read a statistic in accounting today the other day that I think 40 to 45% of firms are still running their firms on spreadsheets. Right. These are the lists of clients that we have to do. And, there's no automation, there's no flow, there's no nothing. Right. Yeah. So we started with Atlassian, the Atlassian suite of products. We were using Trello for a lot of our systems and processes. And we were able to really understand what we needed. And it was a very light and customizable system. But it really eventually shined a bright light on the things that we needed to automate and the things that we need to be thinking about when we found that more holistic project management or firm management system. So fast forward to 2022, and we decided to implement Karbon at the accounting firm. And I would venture to say, I mean, we've done a lot of really impactful things at our firm over the years. Our accounting firm is very progressive and unique in a lot of different ways in terms of the way that we bill and our engagements with our clients and all this other stuff. But Karbon has been probably the largest and most impactful thing that we have done to any of our businesses, because it finally gave us that ability to document those processes and a step further to automate the flow of the processes and just make sure that the communication is really, really tight surrounding everything. Because, what most businesses are realizing that they didn't have under control was that they had all this water cooler talk, right? They had these conversations that just naturally happened as you were walking past people in the office. And then as we all eventually, disappeared from the office and then went hybrid, they realized, hey, we need to make sure that we're still creating this simple communication for people to have on a regular basis. And Karbon is that for us. Their email triage system allows for us to make sure that all of that client communication stays native to a timeline. So if I send something to a client, but I don't copy one of my colleagues on it, they can see that communication in that client's file. So if a client, for whatever reason, emails me and says, hey, Tim, I need to run a bonus, or our tax team is talking about running bonuses at year end, or doing something related to the qualified business income deduction, or an R&D tax credit, or something of that magnitude, that information is there. So it just streamlines things a ton. And then it allows for us to build and roll those processes that we've documented in those checklists, so that if I check something in that checklist and I'm done with it and it's time to move on to the next person, it automatically does that. Right. So it takes some of those steps out of the process of just that, workflow systems that we used to just kind of hand physical folders around in the office. Right. It automates that handoff of that documentation between people. So Karbon has been awesome. platform for us, both at the accounting firm and the payroll business. It just makes everything that much cleaner and clearer in the hybrid work environment. Our decision was we're not going to force people to come back to the office. We're adults, right? So we trust the people that work at our firm,
Right.
and we say, listen, we expect you to get your work done. We expect your clients to be happy. If you get your work done and your clients are happy, then you're doing well here, right?
Yeah.
And if they're not profitable, that's ultimately not the staff's fault. That's our fault as management. We're either not
Right.
pricing it right or not giving them the feedback correctly that, they're not doing things in the most efficient manner. So, you need a system that's going to support whatever those initiatives are, because you may not need, to spend all this time and money and integration on, all of these tech stack items that we have, if you're just going to do something in a physical office with 3 or 4 people and you're going to be able to just see each other every day.
Right.
So
Yep.
it's a decision that you need to make when it comes time to building your payroll business.
Yeah. I think a lot of it's a decision of how big do I want to get and do I want to scale or not? Because it's just the beautiful thing about going remote, and we're 100% remote and always have been. So we didn't have that decision to make, thank God. We just kind of stayed the course.
Yep.
But it's been, to me, a really beautiful model because all the pieces are there to scale already. We're not having to figure out how do we take this from in person to the cloud. Everything's just documented. So I was telling you, like, we're doing an acquisition right now of a number of clients, and it's not a stressful thing to say, hey, we're going to be like onboarding like 5 times as many clients as we are right now. In like a few weeks, it's going to quintuple the number of onboardings that we've got. It's like, when's the last time I said the word quintuple?
It's impressive if you're saying it regularly, that's for sure. Yeah.
But it's like, it's okay because we've got the systems in place. You just work the system. Like, it's not like gonna explode your brain because it's not in your brain, right? That's the thing about it. Like, the work doesn't reside inside your brain where you're trying to keep track of everything. It's in this external system that you manage, and then all the collaboration is built in. Because I assume Karbon works a lot like Asana, where you are able to collaborate on things together. So no one's really working in a silo, even though we have employees in multiple states. Nobody's ever in a silo. No one's doing anything that isn't transparent to everybody else on the team. I can log in right now, and I don't, because like you said, I hire adults and I trust them that they're going to get their work done. They can't do that. They don't work here.
Yep.
But if I want to, I could log in right now and I could see the status of every project, every onboarding, every tax filing. Like, I can just go in and look at all that, and I can see it, even though I'm not physically seeing my employees or bumping into them in the hall or whatever. So I think even if people are in the office or have a hybrid model, I think they should still build out the system that you would use if you were remote. And it might seem kind of weird because you may have somebody down the hall that you're communicating with over a chat or whatever. But I love the audit trail too, of like, the verbal stuff just disappears. But when you've got everything in writing, now you've got that audit trail to go back to make sure things are getting done. If someone's on vacation, you see what they've been working on, you pick up where they left off. So yeah, even if you're in the office, I think you should build a firm that runs essentially the same as a virtual one would. Then the conversations you have can just be about life. Then you can just enjoy each other.
Do it, right? If you're not going to, this is, kind of my point of going all in, is that if you're not going to go all in, it's just one of those things that's not worth doing for so many reasons. I mean, profitability and scalability, but most importantly to me, I've always been blessed with the fact that I enjoy what I do. I enjoy going to work every day. Like, I have a great team of people. I have a great group of partners. We enjoy what we do, and we're blessed to be able to say that. I know that's such a small percentage of the world that actually say, I enjoy my job. I enjoy how I feed my family, right? Yeah. And this is the kind of stuff. If you're documenting your processes and people understand what's expected of them, there's clarity and transparency surrounding what bad, good, and great looks related to their job performance, if there's clarity surrounding when things need to be, when they need to get done, if there's clarity surrounding, hey, when you go on vacation, we know that somebody else is going to be able to step in and do your job so you can actually enjoy your vacation.
Right.
Those are the premises of any company, payroll business, accounting business. I don't care if you're selling widgets somewhere. I mean, if you can ultimately have those premises in place and people have that transparency and clarity when they're going to work, you're going to have a great business. So you're right. I mean, I do think that if you're going to do this payroll business, if you're thinking about doing it, you may as well go all in on the concept of being prepared for hybrid now rather than doing it any other way. If you're going to do it any other way, just don't do it.
Right. Yep. Hey, I have developed a free community on Facebook for users of the payroll relief software. If you use this software and you want to join a community of fellow users where you can get your questions answered and share knowledge with fellow software users, just go to Facebook and search for Payroll Relief User Group and join the community today. So tell me, Tim, just to kind of, well, we probably need to wrap up for the sake of time here, but I do want to talk to you about your dreams and plans and goals right now. Now, I know you've had some changes in your firm that have been pretty dramatic, at least from the outside, it appears to me. Some pretty cool stuff going on. Do you mind kind of shedding some light on that, and then what your growth plans are for the future for White Glove specifically?
Yep. So we joined a private equity-backed group called Ascend. And Ascend is a network of regional accounting firms across the United States. There's this huge splash of private equity that has joined into the public accounting space over the course of the last year or two. And these guys were really unique. We weren't out looking for this. We're a young, healthy, progressive firm that was growing at 10, 20% annually for the last 15 years. There wasn't a ton that we needed. And there wasn't a ton that we felt was going to be solved. The problems that we did have and the challenges that we saw in the future, we didn't feel those were going to be solved by merging in with another firm, right? So was lucky enough to get partnered up with these guys really early on. We were part of the founding group of partner firms for Ascend. And what they're doing aligns really well with what I'm passionate about. I love what I do. My goal is to help more and more people be able to say that every day. I came from, literally washing semi trucks to put myself through college, to working in this accounting office and growing this accounting business, and I'm extremely grateful for the opportunities that were put in front of me, right? So my goal is to continue providing those opportunities to others. So when I looked at this type of a partnership and joining this private equity platform, it was fundamentally because of the idea that I wanted to provide more opportunities for as many people as I could. And I knew that if I was able to get into something like this early enough, I was going to be able to help architect what that looked like long term. Right. So I was going to be able to take the things that we had implemented and integrated into our businesses that our people had loved so much, that ultimately was the reason that we had received countless recognitions for best places to work and the best female firm in the country. And, all these types of recognitions happen because we genuinely care about our people and we want people to enjoy what they're doing every day. And Ascend is backed by a private equity firm called Alpine in San Francisco. And the whole premise of their investment thesis is people first. Let's make sure that our people are valued. Let's make sure that our people understand what their careers look like. Let's make sure that those people have good work-life integration and care about what they do, and they have the right tools and resources to be great at what they do. And that really aligned with me in terms of what we wanted to do long term. I'm been able to grow this business, quite a bit at this point. I'm 37 years old. So I look at this and I say, I got another, 10, 15 strong years in me. So, let's maximize what we can accomplish in those 10 years, and if I'm doing my own thing and I'm reinvesting my own capital and I'm reinvesting my own time and taking time away from, my beautiful wife and 2 little kids, it's going to slow down our progress. Whereas if we can share these ideas with these firms across the country, and we have some capital allocated behind us to make sure that we can accomplish those goals and invest in the right pieces of technology and invest in the right talent, what could we accomplish? So Ascend is a very unique approach to the public accounting space. A lot of the other private equity firms that are getting into this space are getting in at a different level. You see private equity getting involved in the top 10 firms, and ultimately, in my opinion, those are bailouts. Those are firms that just have underfunded their deferred compensation for their partners. They don't have enough young CPAs because there's a pipeline problem. They don't have enough young CPAs and young leaders to pay and to buy all those old partner shares. So those bigger private equity transactions are really just bailing out a methodology in this business that was good enough for many years and finally started to fall apart. So two really different approaches in private equity right now, but lucky to be in the one that we're really proud of and passionate about.
Awesome. Yeah. And I love your desire to say, hey, I'm going to strike while the iron's hot and grow this thing like I can. Because I think I see your heart through it as I want to create opportunities, not just for yourself, but for your team. Because the more you can expand, and you've brought in and shared ownership, which I think is really cool. But the bigger you grow the firm, the more opportunities you're going to create for the people that work with you and for you. And I've heard it said recently, and it's been something I've been thinking about a lot, is that your dreams and goals as an owner need to be big enough for the dreams and goals of your employees to live inside of. I think a lot of people get to a point and they're like, this is good enough for me and my lifestyle as an owner. So I'm just going to, kind of enjoy the fruits of my labors or whatever. And to a certain degree, there's some selfishness to that because you're capping the potential for the people that have invested and gotten you to where you are. So you need to be willing to always be on that growth path, because if you don't, you're not creating opportunities for the people who helped you get there.
Your responsibility as an entrepreneur is more than people understand. As a business owner, you have responsibilities that, nobody tells you. There's no contract when you make this decision to be an entrepreneur, right? Is that you understand, now looking back on things after, being self-employed for the vast majority of my career, I realize that, when I pull in the parking lot and I see all the cars, those car payments are my responsibility. The mortgages are my responsibility. Their kids' scholarships and their kids' tuition are my responsibility. I have decisions that I need to make that are far more broadly impacting than my own life. And you got to do the same thing for your community. You have a responsibility in your community to take care of people, and whether that community is, here in Youngstown, Ohio, or that community is the payroll community, right? Things like this, where you're doing things to help others that are thinking about doing things in the payroll business, or, in our circumstance, we do a lot of work in the broader accounting community. So being a part of a community is extremely important in whatever you're doing, but it's certainly something that people forget. Their responsibility is far beyond the responsibility of just filling their own bank account up. Your responsibility as a business owner and as an entrepreneur is bigger than that. And if you're not willing to sign up for that, just keep getting a W-2 for somebody else, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
And we'll take care of that W-2 as well.
That's right.
We'll get that issued. Awesome. Thanks, Tim. Well, I think we should wrap up here. This has been an awesome conversation. Thanks again for your time and sharing your journey with me and with our audience.
Thanks, man. Keep killing it. Love what you're doing.
Hey, where can people find you? The best place for people to find Tim online.
LinkedIn is the only social media platform that I am on. Personally, you can find us at whiteglovepayroll.com, and you can find our accounting firm at hdgrowthpartners.com.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Tim. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man.
Hey, thank you so much for listening today. This was a blast recording this, and I hope you got a lot of value out of it. If you did, it would mean so much to me if you would subscribe and write a review. If you want to stay in touch with me, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so you can follow me, connect with me. Just search Tyler Wynn, Payroll CPA. I'll pop right up. Send me a message, and I will get back to you. Until next time, this has been Tyler Wynn with the Payroll Profits Podcast.